She found the second birth certificate on a Sunday afternoon in March. Now, while looking for the insurance papers, the ones that covered the car they had bought together 14 years ago in a city she no longer lived in. The folder was labeled household in his handwriting. Careful, upright letters. The kind of handwriting you trust because it looks organized. Because organized people don't do this. At least that's what you tell yourself in the years before you open the wrong folder on the right Sunday afternoon and understand that organized people do this especially. That the organization is sometimes the mechanism, not the proof against it. Hold that thought. Don't let it go. My name is Elise Morrow. I'm not telling you this as confession. I'm telling you because I need somewhere to put it, and because what happened to me has a shape that other people's shapes have matched, and because that matching, that specific, nauseating recognition, is maybe the only thing that has made any of it bearable. Not healed, bearable. Graz is a city in the south of Austria, about 2 hours from Vienna by train. Quiet river through the middle. A hill with a clock tower. The particular stillness of a city that knows it is not the capital. I moved there in 2007 with a man named Tobias Fenner, who worked in municipal infrastructure contracts. A job that required paperwork, travel, reasonable absences, the kind of career structure that answers questions before they're asked. We had met 3 years earlier at a conference in Salzburg, where I was presenting research on flood risk modeling, and he was attending as a client representative. He was calm and exact. He asked questions in a way that made you feel like your answers mattered. He remembered specifics, the name of my supervisor, the region I'd grown up in, a particular detail I'd mentioned once in passing and never expected anyone to retain. I know now that this quality, the quality of total attention, can be a technique as easily as a character trait. I didn't know it then. We moved to Graz in September 2007. We rented, then bought, an apartment in the Geidorf district near the university. 14 years. I want you to sit with that number for a moment. 14 years is not a short story. 14 years is a shared language for every room in the apartment, a particular way of loading the dishwasher that becomes invisible because it's always done the same way, a shorthand for everything including grief, especially grief, the kind you accumulate from small losses. A parent's diagnosis. A pregnancy that didn't hold. The year the city flooded and we lost the car, and we ate takeout for 3 weeks on the kitchen floor because neither of us could face the table. 14 years. And I found a second birth certificate on March 4th, 2022 at 14:17 in the afternoon. I know the time because I photographed the document with my phone and the metadata is still in my camera roll. The child's name was Mia Ines Fenner, born August 9th, 2010, in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Father listed, Tobias Fenner. Mother, Katia Dravar. He had been, I want to find the word, elsewhere. He had been elsewhere. For 11 of our 14 years, there had been a girl in Ljubljana and a woman named Katia Dravar, and some version of Tobias that I had never met. 30 kilometers from the Slovenian border. 14 years. I never crossed it. I thought I understood. I had the document. I had a name. I had the date. That felt, in that moment, like the whole shape of it. It wasn't. I hadn't found the letters yet. I sat with the certificate for 3 hours. Made tea I didn't drink. Put the certificate back in the folder. Took it out again. The number I kept returning to was not the date. It was the spacing. Between Mia's birthday in August 2010 and the apartment we purchased together in Graz in early 2011. 7 months. He signed a mortgage with me 7 months after a child was born to another woman in the next country. The folder was labeled household. You put in the household folder. What happened to me is not rare. I need you to understand that before we go further, because rarity is the first thing you reach for the idea that this belongs to the category of terrible things that happen in films and cautionary forums and not in your actual life. It does not belong there. The research, once you start looking, arrives in quantities that take your breath away. Dagmar Kessler was 51 years old when she discovered that her husband Werner had maintained a second household in Innsbruck for 19 years. Werner was an electrical contractor based in Linz who genuinely traveled for work. She found out because a parking authority in Innsbruck sent a fine to their Linz address. Werner had forgotten after 19 years, to update the secondary vehicle's registration. €9. 19 years. The woman in Innsbruck had 2 children with Werner. The oldest was 17. She had been attending school events alone for 17 years because Werner was always working late on the Linz contracts. The Linz contracts that were Dagmar, who had also been attending school events alone because Werner was always working late in Innsbruck. 2 women, 2 cities, 1 man, perpetually late, perpetually elsewhere, perpetually accounted for. Park Ji-soo was a 38-year-old accountant in Daejeon, South Korea. Her partner of 11 years, Choi Hyun-woo, died unexpectedly of a cardiac event in November 2019. While preparing his memorial, going through his cloud account to find photographs for the service, she found a folder she didn't recognize. Inside, 847 photographs of a life she had never seen. A woman, a child, an apartment in Seoul decorated entirely differently from the one in Daejeon. A child drawings on a refrigerator. A birthday cake with 6 candles. 6 candles. The child had been born in 2013. Choi Hyun-woo had held that child, a few days old, and then driven 3 hours south to Daejeon and told Park Ji-soo he had been delayed at a client meeting in Busan. She reached out to the woman in Seoul. They spoke for 47 minutes. Park Ji-soo later wrote about it in a grief forum that became, with her permission, the subject of a report by Seoul researcher Dr. Han Min-kyung on what Han called sustained parallel partnership. She wrote, "We had the same argument with him about money in 2 cities for 6 years, and he resolved it the same way in both places. Same resolution, different city, different woman, same man." That detail is the one I keep returning to. But not yet. We're not there yet. Fernanda Costello was 44 years old, living in Porto Alegre, Brazil. Her husband of 16 years, Marcio Oro, was a long-haul freight manager, discovered not through a document or a photograph, but through a neighbor of his second household in Florianopolis who mentioned to someone who knew someone a detail specific enough to travel 4 degrees of social connection to reach Fernanda. She drove to Florianopolis on a Thursday, parked on the street, sat in the car for 22 minutes, then knocked on the door. The woman who answered was named Silvana. She and Marcio had been together for 9 years. She believed completely that she was the primary relationship, that the absences were work, that the plan was to eventually, when the contract stabilized, stop traveling so much. Fernanda later said, in a 2021 interview, that the strangest part was not the confrontation. The strangest part was that Silvana made her coffee, and they sat and talked for 3 hours, because neither of them had anyone else who understood the precise shape of what had happened. That felt for a while like the full shape of what these stories have in common. 2 people, 2 cities, 1 disappearing act. I thought I could place my story inside that shape. I thought the folder label household was the worst of it. That was enough. I had a pattern. I had other cases. I had a framework. Except it wasn't enough. Not even close. The psychologists will try to explain this to you. Some of it is worth hearing. A researcher named Dr. Lotte Berger at the University of Bern published a study in 2020 tracking 61 confirmed cases of sustained relational bifurcation across 9 European countries. She was looking for clinical pathology, narcissistic personality structure, sociopathic traits, a consistent cluster of diagnosable markers. She found that in 34 of the 61 cases, 55%, there was no diagnosable disorder, no clinical narcissism, no sociopathy, no significant history of deception in other areas of their lives. Reliable people, trusted people, described by colleagues and neighbors as unusually consistent. Her explanation, provisional, she was careful, is what she called threshold entrapment. The deception doesn't begin as a system. It begins as a single decision made under enormous emotional pressure that the person cannot reverse without catastrophic loss. From that one decision, every subsequent day builds a structure that becomes, after enough years, load-bearing. Dismantling it means the collapse of everything. Both lives, both relationships, both versions of yourself that now genuinely exist. I'm not sure that's right. Or rather, I believe the mechanism for the beginning. What I don't believe is that it accounts for what comes after. You, right now, if you're in a relationship you trust, you understand the difference between a single desperate decision and a decision remade silently every morning for 14 years. That's not a threshold. That's a practice. You don't drift into 11,000 renewals of a lie. You choose each one, and then the next, and then again, until choosing it feels smaller than imagining what stopping would require. Berger's model holds the origin. It cannot hold the accumulation. An accumulation is where these stories actually live. The origin is just the door. Accumulation is the house. Now I need to tell you about the letters. And I need you to hear what I'm about to say as precisely as I can say it, because this is the part where everything I've told you so far, the two cities, the two women, the parallel lives running alongside each other, that entire framing is wrong. Stop. That's not what. Let me try again. Everything I just told you about two parallel lives, that's not what Tobias was doing. Or rather, it's what it looked like from the outside. From the inside, it was something else entirely. He wasn't running two lives in parallel. He was running them through each other. And the letters are how I know. After I found the birth certificate, I found in the same folder a bundle held with a rubber band. 26 letters. Handwritten. The envelopes addressed to a P.O. box in Maribor, Slovenia. The handwriting on the envelopes, mine, were something so close to mine that I spent a long time looking before I understood what I was seeing. They were not my letters. Tobias had asked me, early in our relationship, to write to him by hand. He said he found it meaningful. That email felt thin, that he wanted something physical, something he could keep. I thought it was romantic. I wrote to him for the first 3 years we were together, until it became impractical and we let it go naturally. Katia Dravar had also written to him by hand, for the same reason he had given her. The same exact reason, in almost the same exact words. And she had been writing to him. I learned this from Katia herself, in a style that had gradually, across years of correspondence, converged towards something that looked remarkably like mine. Because Tobias had, in the early years of each relationship, read aloud to each of us from the other's letters, without identifying the source. He described them as letters from an old friend he admired. He read us each other's words. We absorbed them. We wrote back, each of us, in a voice partially shaped by the others, without knowing the other existed. Maybe. I genuinely don't know if he understood what he was doing, but understand what it means if he did. He was not maintaining two separate lives. He was engineering a single emotional architecture built from two women who were unknowingly constructing it together. We were not parallel. We were being woven, without our knowledge, without our consent. 26 letters in that bundle. I counted them 3 times. 11 in Katia's handwriting, 11 in mine. For in a handwriting I couldn't identify. Someone else, some other time, whose name I still don't have. For letters from a third direction. That's where I am with that. That's not compartmentalization. That's curation. And I don't have a psychological model that fully accounts for it. The detail of the shared voice. 2 women writing toward the same ideal without knowing they're building it together, is the part that Berger's threshold entrapment cannot carry. It requires something colder, something more deliberate, or something more broken. I can't tell the difference from where I'm standing. I called Katia on a Tuesday in April 2022, 6 weeks after the folder. She answered on the 4th ring. I told her my name. She was quiet for 11 seconds. I counted afterward from memory, and then she said, I wondered if this would happen. She had known about me for 4 years. Tobias had told her in 2018, during one of what she described as his clarifying periods, moments when he would become suddenly, briefly honest, and then retreat before anything could change. He told her there was someone in grass. He told her he couldn't leave either situation. He cried. She held him. And then things continued. I want to be precise about what I felt when she told me that. Not rage. Not at her. What I felt was a specific exhaustion. The exhaustion of understanding that I had been a known quantity in someone else's mathematics for 4 years. That Katia had sat with the knowledge of my existence, and I had sat with complete ignorance. And Tobias had managed the distance between us with the same quiet efficiency he brought to everything else. We spoke for 1 hour and 14 minutes. She told me that Mia, who is now 14, still asks about him, that she tells her he is complicated. She hasn't found a better word. I told her I haven't either. That felt, briefly, like a place to stop, like the phone call was the end of the shape and we could both put it down. But then she said something else. At the end of the call, she said, "He made both of us feel chosen. That was the mechanism. He made us each feel like the real one." I can't answer that cleanly. Maybe the real one was neither of us. Maybe it was both. Maybe those aren't different things. But I know that the feeling she described, the specific texture of being chosen, is exactly what I built 14 years on top of. And building it was not stupidity, not inattention. It was exactly what love is supposed to look like from the inside. So what does any of this mean for you? Not just for me and Graz, not just for Katia and Silvana and Park Jisoo. For you, right now, living inside a relationship you believe you understand completely. Dr. Berger's research found that in 89% of her documented cases, the deceived partner reported at least one moment of unexplained unease in the preceding 2 years. Not suspicion, not evidence. A texture, a feeling something was slightly off, resolved quickly with a reasonable explanation, because reasonable explanations are always available to people who need to believe them. I had 3 of those moments. I can name them exactly. Each one I resolved within 24 hours because Tobias was calm and organized and had a good answer for everything, and because I loved him, and because love and rational explanation together are almost impossible to resist from the inside. You probably have those moments too. Most of them mean nothing. Most of them are exactly what the reasonable explanation says. But Berger's numbers, 4 to 6% of sustained long-term partnerships involving some form of sustained parallel life, are not zero. Not close to zero. Count the committed couples you know. Run that arithmetic slowly. The thing I want to leave with you, not as a reason to dismantle anything, not as a prescription for suspicion, is something smaller and more specific. The person you love is always partially unknown to you. Not because they are lying, because the interior of a person is larger than any relationship can fully contain. The question is only how large, and whether the rooms you haven't been shown are incidental or load-bearing. Tobias was not a monster. Katia said that, and I believe she was right, and I have spent 3 years being destabilized by the fact that she was right. He was a person who reached a point where closing either door felt like destroying something real, and then continued, year after year, November after November, keeping both doors from closing by never standing still long enough to be seen standing between them. That is not a defense. It is the shape, and I'm still learning to hold the shape without needing it to mean something final. The part one cannot finish, and maybe I never will, is this: whether he knew what he was doing when he read us each other's letters. Whether it was cruelty wearing the face of love, or love that had no other form available to it, or something that doesn't fit cleanly into either category. Whether the slow convergence of our handwriting, that years-long drift toward a shared shape, was something he noticed and deliberately built, or something that happened around in the way it happened to us, without any of us understanding what we were making together. A man writing the same name twice, in 2 different hands, for 2 different women, across the same years. I don't know which interpretation is worse. I have been sitting with both of them for 3 years. Neither one has let me go. And that's where we are. 26 letters, held with a rubber band. 4 of them in a hand I still don't recognize. What was real across 14 years, I've stopped trying to answer completely. Next week, we go further. Same darkness, different door. Somewhere an archive holds something that should have been destroyed a long time ago. Stay with me. If the letters stayed with you, the handwriting that was almost yours, the P.O. box in Maribor, the rubber band, the comments are open. Subscribe. There are more stories like this one. Turn the lights off. Press play. Don't hang up. Shadow tapes.